Have you ever wondered how you can create a search recommendation bar like this? When I type butter, I get recommendations like this. Have you ever wondered how you can create that using React? Let me show you. First, if we see the file structure, we have searchbar.jsx file here. And second, we have the searchbar.css file, where I'll be using this file to style my search bar component. And finally, we have app.jsx. If we dive into the searchbar.jsx, initially I'm importing the use state from React and I'm importing my searchbar.css file here. And in this JSX file, we have a function-based component named searchbar, and inside this function-based component, I have two useState hooks. The initial one is the query, which holds the value of the text which we type directly into the search bar, and setQuery to update the text. And second useState hook is suggestions. Suggestions holds the value of the filtered items and set suggestions to update the items. And next I have a array called data, and inside that data I have a list of a number of items. And I have handle input change function, which is typically a arrow function. And in this arrow function runs every time when a user types a text in the search bar. And inside this arrow function, I have assigned a value for the text variable, and the value is event.target.value, which means it extracts the text which is typed directly into the search bar and assigns that value to this variable text. And set query. If you can remember, this set query is this set query. I'm setting the query and passing the variable text and setting the query. So next, I'm checking in the if statement if the text variable holds any value. If it's so, I'm creating a variable called filtered suggestions and I'm assigning a value to it. The value is data.filter. Data is an array which we saw earlier, and I'm using the filter method on it. And inside the filter method, I'm saying for each item an arrow mark, which means do this. Doing what? Item dot to lowercase, which means let's take an example. In the data array, we have milk, an item. If we can see that item's initial letter is capital M, which means that will be changed, that entire word will be changed to lowercase, right? And dot includes checking if that item, it iterates through each item and checks if it includes a specific word. What specific word? I'm just passing the text dot lowercase, which means this text holds the value which I typed inside the search bar. And eventually, I'm changing that text which I typed into the search bar to lowercase and checking it if that includes in that data array. If it's so, I'm just storing that value in the filtered suggestion. Next, in the else statement, if the text variable doesn't hold any value, I'm just clearing the set suggestions. And finally, I'm returning a return statement, which is a JSX. And inside the return statement, I have an input of type text, and the value is query. Query is the use state hook, which I used query. And on change, I'm calling the handle input change function, which is typically an arrow function, which we talked earlier. And the placeholder is search, and the class name is search input, which this class name I'll be using in my search bar.css to style this. So if you can see here, I have used class name here. You might wonder if you have learned HTML and CSS and JavaScript when you are working with those things. When you're styling, you are using the keyword called class, but here we are using the class name. Why is it? Because class is a reserved keyword in React, so we use here class name. Just a small info. Finally, I have a condition, which means suggestion.length is greater than 0 and a question mark, which means I'm checking if this condition suggestion.length is greater than 0, if it is true or false. If it is true, I'm rendering this suggestion card. If it is false, I'm returning a null. If you see, for me personally, this is too much of code. What I do is, alternatively, I can short circuit it without without checking if it is true or false. I mean, I'm removing this question mark and adding a AND operator, which means I'm short circuiting it, right? This is also right. We can go to the browser and check it. If I type here milk, it works. So both way goes correct. So finally, in the app.jsx file, I'm importing my search bar.jsx file as search bar, and I'm rendering it in my parent components. So this is the way of creating a search bar with recommendations using React.